plane as well, meaning that we can hear information internally, we can sense it, we can feel it. And everybody has their own thing. Some people only have one, like some people only see things and they're like, oh my God, Vanessa, what does it mean? And some people have a combination. And I can tell you this, that I've been a psychic now, reading people since I'm 16. I'm the fourth generation psychic intuitive in my family, but yet I do not have gut feelings. And so we have to go
Oh,
beyond like
wait,
what
wait,
we've been
wait.
sharing. Yeah,
Mm.
it's recording.
Oh, I think. All right. Sorry about that. We stopped.
It's recording on my end. Oh, I can't hear you now.
That's because I muted myself. We had some serious feedback.
Okay.
No, I don't want to leave a meeting. Okay, I'm stuck. I'm stuck in Never Never Land
No
on
worries.
Zoom. Yeah. So I'm
Did you
going
want to go
to.
on YouTube? Because we just went live on YouTube and we're still on YouTube and we are recording right now. I see the
Okay,
record.
keep going. I just don't know how to get there from here.
Oh, okay.
That's where the feedback came from.
Oh, okay.
So,
We are totally live on YouTube right now.
oh, that's fine on my channel. That's fine. I would just wanted to see you again. Boy, that's it's simply because interaction when you see the other person is much more powerful, I believe.
I do too. So what I would say to you to do
Mm-hmm.
is your screen probably shifted off the front, and so you have to just find where Zoom is and click on it. I know, easier said than done. I'm sorry. I wish I could share it.
Oh, you know what? It's just funny. That's all. See,
Yeah, but we're trying
now I
to.
know. Now I was going to say, now I know why all these people have uh, these tech people with them when they're actually trying to, do a Zoom. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop because this is nonsense, and I'm going to end the meeting and then I'm going to start the meeting again.
Perfect.
So there's Zoom. There we go. Okay, I found this.
Yeah, the
Well,
recording is still going.
it is, and we're still live on YouTube. So let's continue. Okay, so
And nonsense is part of life. So don't worry, here we are. So we were talking about intuition, and I was
yes.
saying that if you believe in a higher power, you can call it the connection to the divine, the connection to spirit. If you don't, if you're more of a, skeptic, it doesn't matter. You still have it, and it comes in different ways, and it's up to us to explore. A lot of people say things like the gut feeling, but I don't have gut feelings. I have like knowing, hearing, feeling and sensing. And so everybody has a different inner gift.
I tend to call it the voice.
Yes.
Simply, and the voice is not something complicated or dramatic. It's very simple. When the voice speaks, to me at least, it's something I could tell a three-year-old kid and they'd get it. It's like, oh yeah, I understand that. So
Nathaniel, totally. And for you, because you're hearing the information just like I do. And that's one of the things about real intuition is that it's simple. It's not complicated. It's usually repetitive. When we get the information, even if it's intense, like you said, it saved your life. It saved my life too. It wasn't like, Vanessa, be careful. It was like, sit up straight so you don't break your back, right? And I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, oh my God, I could have broken my back in the accident. But intuition isn't dramatic. Intuition is calm. And that's where I think people confuse it. And for you, it's a voice. I hear a voice. For some people, it's a gut. Some people, it's a sensation on their skin. Everybody has it differently. But I
so
agree. Not dramatic.
that's how to recognize it, and hopefully that helps some of the listeners. I will give you an example. A long time ago, 1986, I was flying Army helicopters during an exercise in Germany called Reforger, which is Return of Forces to Germany. And we were air calving people. We were a Black Hawk unit, and we were tasked with moving the 82nd Airborne from one place to another place, about 60 kilometers away. And we had been going through this saddle in the mountains, and I had 18 people on board, and we're going 155, 160 miles an hour, low level, in the trees, bad weather. And the voice said, go to the right. Okay. Or actually it was go right. So as I turned to the right to crest this saddle, another helicopter was coming the exact same way. And we would have went, helicopters don't meet in the air very well. if you could imagine.
Yeah.
That's one example. So
Yeah.
it's not dramatic. It's not Hollywood. What I'd like people to understand is you must, one is you have to learn how to differentiate between ego and the voice or intuition or whatever you want to call it. Once you call it something, you kind of limit it, but let's just call it intuition or the voice or something we could agree on. I'd like to say the voice or the gut feeling. And the gut feeling is not anything more than, your gut and your heart and your brain are all connected. And that's just the way it is. We're finding out more and more about that the ancients have known for thousands and thousands, millennia. So that's kind of.
Absolutely. And I love your story because, even in the ancient temples of Apollo, right, who was supposedly also a god of Greece for prophecy and many other things, it said, know thyself. And so, in terms of intuition, it's important for us to know ourselves so we can listen to it. And like you said, getting our ego out of the way. Like, I remember I was in my early 20s, I was already reading people, and I got this thing. I was about to go on a date. And I heard, do not bring that boy up to your house. Don't let that guy come up to your house. And unfortunately, though, I felt bad because he was like, well, it's hot out. I want to leave my jacket upstairs. He came and left the jacket. And then I broke up with him. It was only 2 dates. And I was like, I don't think we're going to see each other again. The voice again kept saying, don't bring him upstairs. I felt bad as a woman looking crazy or weird. So I was like, okay, come up to get the jacket, which he did attack me. I was able to defend myself. But I learned after, I was able to push him out the door and shove him out. And I was like, I sat down, I was like, wow, I almost sold myself out, my safety, because I wanted to be a good girl. That's the way we're raised as women. Men are much more raised to speak up and speak out and say, hey, this is not what I want. What's going on? As women, we are usually more people pleasers. As we heal in life, we start to release some of that. And it was a big deal for me to be 22 and go through that. I was like, okay, when I hear something that says, don't do this, I'm going to do it. And that's a big thing for me. I wanted to share a story as well. In 2012, I was already working part-time for many years, and I had a career in media communications in New York and corporate communications. But I had this, the healing work and the intuitive work on the side. I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to really support myself doing this work, though I know it's very real. And as we were driving off with the family in Florida to a home in Georgia, it was a vacation home. I was leaning out in the back seat with my leg in front of the passengers. My parents were in front, and I'm half asleep. And I hear, sit up straight so you don't break your back. I sat up. Then I hear, check that everybody has seatbelts. My mom didn't. She put it on. And then it's like, take the bracelet off your right wrist because it's really big and clunky. It'll harm you. And it was a big, I don't know what kind of bracelet, but I took it off. And then I sat up, and it was like 6:37 in the morning. I'm like, can I sleep? Within minutes, though, my dad was driving a little fast, I have to say. He lost control of the car when the tire burst. So there was something wrong with the tire. We started to careen into a truck. And I'm sitting there holding on to the seat, what? I'm like, I can't die now. I didn't do my work. And this is 2012. And I was like, what am I going to do? What is it? And I kept hearing, you're fine. Everything's fine. Everyone's fine. My father pulled away, and we started rolling down this little hill. And as I'm rolling, I'm like, okay, God, just take me. Can I hang out with my family and support them when I die? I mean, I assumed that I was leaving the planet. And I kept hearing, you're fine, everything's fine. When we landed, they were upside down, hanging from their seatbelts. I was loose because I didn't have one, but I was okay. I helped them get out from, hanging from the ceiling. But as I crawled out of the car, it's like, Vanessa, you've been held during this. You're going to be held during your business. You're going to be held during growing your service in the world. And so, like you said, it wasn't dramatic when they came through. They said, sit up so you don't break your back. But they didn't say to me, when you almost have a head-on collision, right? No one said, get your mom's seatbelt on so she doesn't die and go through the windshield, right? It was like, and so I just listened naturally. And that is something that's really important. If anyone is really getting some intense message where you have a lot of fear, it could be your anxiety. It could be just fear, because intuition usually just comes very peaceful. It just objectively tells you, hey, the right, or hey, sit up so you don't break your back. It's not like, oh, you gotta, it's none of that. You know what I mean? It keeps you very calm so you could actually listen to it and follow through.
And like I mentioned, once I understood that it never comes in any complex form, it's usually what you need to be hearing. Uh, Hysteria comes from the Hollywood mindset that's been implanted in our brains about disasters, and the worst possible scenario is always worse than what actually really happens.
Exactly.
So, um, perhaps a few things, maybe meditation or journaling or other things that you have, tools or practices that can help develop intuition.
Absolutely. So one of the important things is because there's also another, some people are empaths, right? So they're emotional intuitives. So they're always picking up people's emotions. So I think it's really important to get away from people. I mean, I know it's hard now, it's COVID. Some of us live in bigger spaces, some in small, but even if you could take a walk by yourself or tell yourself in the restroom, whatever you need to do, just take that moment where you could breathe, come back to your own body, like feel your breath. We're usually very focused on the outside world and what's happening out there. It's like allowing ourselves to return to our breath, to return to our body, closing our eyes. And as we allow ourselves to just drop into our body, a very basic question of what do I need to know right now? Because intuition is always functioning in present moment. It's not like stressed out about the past. It's not like freaked out and anxious about the future. It's giving you information in this moment in a calm way. So the calmer we are, the more trusting and relaxed we are, the more we're going to pick something up. And I say, what do we need to know right now? Because a lot of people and a lot of women call me like, I want to know if I'm going to have a boy or a girl. I'm going to know if the baby's going to be, I'm going to know, and they want to know the future and they want a divination. The thing is, we want to attune ourselves to that voice, to that gut feeling, to that knowing. So then we're ready to show up however we're needed to show up in the moment. And that's a way is to cultivate it through the meditation, through breathing. They're asking that, and they sound so simple, right? But it's just taking the time to do it and pulling out a book and being like, well, what do I need to know? And then writing it down. I can tell you when I was 19, my guides told me to do that. And I think it was months later, I looked back and I was like, wow, this was so on point. Oh, I didn't see it about that boyfriend. Oh, I needed to know that about my parents. Because in the moment, we may not see all of it, but then in time when we look back. And so we want to have a relationship with that intuition, with that part of ourselves.
And I'd like to add that as humans, we need to get out of our head and into our body. And breathing and standing barefoot in the grass are two ways to do that effectively. We also have to think about what I call zero reality and one reality. When you're buried with your head in a phone, you're in zero reality. I mean, it's not you are not present in this. Your mind is down the rabbit hole. So what we need to do is one, get into one reality, which is the physical 3D world that we live in, and then get out of our head and into our body. And exercise is a wonderful way, but then just breathing and standing barefoot in the grass or sand or the water is another way to do that. I've found.
Oh, absolutely. And there's so many different ways. And for some people, they can't meditate. So they find that they hear their voice while they're dancing or moving. I was on a new treadmill I just purchased last week and I got all these downloads. I'm like, oh, I got to do this more often, right? There's so many different ways to access. And like you said, that was a key thing is about relaxing the mind, getting out of our head and being in present moment, like you said, in this reality, in one reality here right now, because all of the guidance that we need is in present moment. And so we take
True.
care of that. We don't need like, there's a lot of intricate things where we're like, let's get into fifth dimensional light language. And that's great. I respect it. But for me, it's very basic. Like it's very like present. Like I feel like we were given everything we needed, which is our body, our breath, our, we can move our feet on the grass, and then our intuition that's always there. So.
Absolutely. And you said something, or I read something on either your website or something about you, and it reminds me of something that I said 30 or 40 years ago when somebody asked me something or I heard it. Most people, we absorb about 70 to 80% of what we are and who we believe and that kind of thing. But when I heard this, it rang true. And it may have been one of my combative instructors where he said, look, stop searching for a spiritual experience because you are a spiritual being in a physical experience. Get that straight. I was like, oh,
Yes. And I love that your combat instructor said that to you because it's so true. And that's something that I find that's happening right now in the world, even before COVID, which was like seeking spiritual experience, like it's outside of you when it's just inside of you. And I mean, and I love some of the books and the movies that have come out where they show the woman traveling the world to get the spiritual experience. That's beautiful. But I was sitting there when I was seeing all that, and I'm like, I didn't leave my apartment. I live in New York City. I was like walking, I was still getting like so much spiritual experience from just being present. And so while it's beautiful to go to Thailand and Tibet and all these other places, even now with what's happening in the world, we're kind of invited to stay home and tend our own garden, which is not only our backyard, but our inner world. So I love that. We
Well,
are pretty spiritual.
the another thing I'll share is that that the, God was hidden in a part of man that they rarely tend to look. They tend to want to climb to the highest mountain or go to the greatest depths of the ocean, where they hid God was right here in your heart, where you usually tend not to look.
Yes. I love that. And but see, for some reason, we as humans find that too simple and we don't like it. Like we have to complicate things.
It's not complex enough. It can't be. It can't be true because it's too easy. It's too simple. It needs to be more complex.
But the thing is, it's like, look, people, life is hard enough, with everything that's happening. Let's allow what's easy to be easy, right? Let's allow, like I always say, they're like, oh, you're doing this, you're doing that. I'm like, I flow. I use the word flow. Like I flow with my intuition. I flow. Like people are like, how could you be in sessions all day and doing hypnosis, doing that? And then I go and I hang out in the backyard or lay in the hammock because I'm present. I'm not leaving my body when I'm in a session. I'm not like going off into another dimension. I'm very much present here, breathing with the other person like we are right now and responding and receiving, etc. And so I love that you bring this up about how God was put in our hearts and to stop seeking elsewhere, to just listen.
Mm-hmm. Some of the a piece of advice that was very meaningful to me was basically that where the person said, you don't need to go to a monastery, you don't need to go to the top of the mountain, you don't need to live a hermetic life or hermit lifestyle. He said, make every decision you make better than the last one, and whenever you decide something, put the other person's interest before yours. And he said that will be hard enough.
Oh,
You know,
I love
those
that.
seeking enlightenment, yeah, try that. Try this one little thing first. See if you like that.
I love that. I love that. And it's so true because this thing where we want to make everything complicated or see it as dramatic or that it has to be so hard is affecting people on a really big level. What I'm seeing with my clients, where they're like, there's a lot of suffering because of that, because we're always feeling like, well, I'm not on my purpose. I'm not on my this. And it's like, well, just make that decision, like you said, better than the last one. Put another person ahead of you. Like follow the basics of being a good human being, right? And being present. And I feel that we need to go back to basic. And that's why, like, when I started working with intuition publicly, a lot of coaches were like, oh, you're not going to succeed because it's too simple. Like, that I had
Thank
to
you.
write, right. Like, it
Thanks
has
for the
to
vote
be,
of confidence.
yeah, right. That it has to be complicated, like, find your purpose. But I'm like, but if you're present and listen to your intuition, you'll naturally find your love. You'll naturally gravitate towards the right people who are right for you, your right friendships. If you're in your intuition, you're naturally going to find the love or the healing that you need, right? You're naturally going to go towards the career that really truly calls you. You're naturally going to be a happier person because you're in alignment. So that's why, to me, it's like, it's maybe simple to others, but it's at the core of it.
Right. Right. And what's funny is people really don't realize that the universe talks to you through other people. For instance, several years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, people kept saying you need to be on radio. You have a radio voice. You have a radio voice. Well, I've been talking on the radio for 38 years in military aviation and commercial aviation. So, but I just kept hearing the same thing over and over and over. It's like, you know what? Okay, I get it. I get the message. When you hear the same thing from different people, the same message over and over, you need to pay attention. That's not intuition. That's direct communication. If you keep hearing the same thing from different people, it might behoove you to listen.
Yes, absolutely. And the outside, and we're talking about, the not so positive aspects of listening to the outside, but let's listen to the positive ones where there's signs, right? Where God speaks through people, our divine messages are given to us through people, sometimes strangers, right? They could just be
Complete
walking by.
strangers.
They don't know you. And it's like, blah, 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 or we do it, right?
Yeah. How'd you know that? How'd you know that? Yeah.
Yeah, or music sometimes, or signs. I have a friend who's like, I don't know if I should move. This was years ago. I don't know if I should move to California. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Next thing you know, every cab that she got into in New York, Hotel California, California girl. She's like, I can't take it. And then she goes, and then on top of it, I got out of my little trip and I turned around and I saw that a car drove by and it said California on the back. And I'm like, girl, you have to go. And so we're definitely given signs all of the time. And it's our fear, right? We want to hold on to what we know. There's something that I say in my training programs, which is that most of us want life to change the way we want it to change. And that's why we hold back and we don't listen, because we feel like maybe we have some semblance of control, and we kind of really don't. I mean, we can say, well, I'm going to get up today, I'm going to do this podcast. We could do some things, but yet there's something else that's guiding all of it. So we really don't have control. We may have control on how to react to something.
That's the only thing you have control over. Have you ever read the book Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl?
Yes.
In a concentration camp, he had control over one thing, how he reacted to the situation. That's it. After everything was stripped away. Very powerful book if you haven't read it, and you
Yes.
have, but for the listeners out there, not a very large book, but a very deep book.
Yeah.
What's interesting about this as well is you mentioned her seeing California, here in California. It's also along the same lines of maybe you buy a car and then all of a sudden you start seeing the same car because your awareness has shifted. So once she starts saying, okay, California is in our mind, she was able to recognize all these different things that were happening around her anyways. And it
Yeah.
changed her awareness of what she perceived, I believe.
Totally, totally. And it's also like, it's like, what is it called? Where your mind focuses, it matters. Mind matters, or something like that. I don't remember the saying, but something like that. And that's why, like, when we're talking about even healing or even an intuition, if we're very focused, I mean, not to ignore what is real, not to ignore that there are some dangers in the world, some things that we have to be careful with, right? But if we overly focus on something, like let's say some women want to go back to dating, or women are worried about, let's see, getting pregnant or something like that, or men, going to find a job and whatever it may be, or dating themselves. If we're overly focused on, oh, but the divorce rate is so high, this is what's happening, it's no wonder then that you're attracting relationships that are like, I was talking to a friend a while back and she was like, oh, but this date is not working and maybe I'm going to be stuck forever. And I'm like, I met my partner later, but I had this incredible hope that if I was out here looking an amazing human being, that there's somebody else out there too who's just as amazing waiting for me. And because I kept that hope, I showed up on the dates. I said no to this one, no, until we found each other. And that's the thing. It's not about being just like blindly positive, but to choosing where we're placing our focus, right?
So that reminds me of an old story I heard a long time ago. These two older men were sitting, and they're in their 70s or 80s, and one of the other men talked to them and said, "So, how come you never got married?" He goes, "Well, I was always looking for the perfect woman, and a long time ago, I met this woman who was perfect for me. She had all the habits, the traits, the looks, everything was perfect for me." And the old guys, "Well, Saul, how come you didn't marry her?" He said, "Well, she was looking for the perfect guy, and I wasn't it." So, anyways, along those lines, back to now. Here's something let's transition. We're holding a brand new baby, and we're thinking we get a gut feeling, or why is this baby crying? Hey, how about maybe listening to your intuition? The logical dad. I've had 5 kids. It's hungry, it's tired, it's overstimulated. You don't know, or it's wet. I mean, that's kind of the 5. Mothers may know a few more, but sometimes the mother's like, grandma grabbed the baby. Oh, well, its shirt's too tight, and opened, and the baby stops crying. But those kind of things, when it comes to children, you're plugged into the intuition. It's usually screaming at you, but because you're so fried and frayed in other ways, you're not really listening to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, I think that probably intuition kicks in for some women. I've heard that it kicks in the minute that they're pregnant. You know what I mean? Like they're like, I knew before I did the test. But then I've heard of other women who are like, I can't believe it. I was pregnant 3 months and I didn't know. Right? Who knows? And so whenever it does kick in for you, it's important to stay calm with it, like some things we've talked about earlier, and to listen because you're going to get it. You know, my mom gave birth to 4 kids, and I'm a stepmom. And when she gave birth to the 4 kids, she would always know. I mean, she would always know before she even saw you. She would know if she heard your voice. And I think a lot of dads and moms do this. And it's important to listen, not to get into the drama of it, like the intensity to go from 0 to 150, like, but to pay attention to it too, right? And not to overlook it. The challenge therein, though, is like when you're fried, right? When you're really tired, how to be able to listen to it. But I believe that it kicks in, especially after the baby's born, but for many, it kicks in even before.
Mm.
I've heard of many stories where women were like, or fathers were like, I knew something was wrong. And the mom wasn't showing any exterior symptoms or anything, but they knew something was going on with the baby. And they went to the hospital, insisted, and then found out something was going on. And they were able to save the baby's life. So I would say try to stay as calm as possible, not take it from 0 to a billion or 100. But if there's something insistent that says something's going on, there's nothing wrong with getting checked. There's nothing wrong with doing what you need to do so you can also feel calm.
Certainly. If, like I
Yeah.
said, if something's nagging and you don't know where it's coming from, again, ego is usually dramatic, but if there's something nagging that says, check this, or, go see a doctor, whatever it's nagging you to do, go do that. And then, oh, by the way, you could either put your fears to rest or go, oh, well, I'm glad I found that out. Let's, here's the next step.
Yeah.
So
That reminds me of a story. So I had a client who was about to leave with her husband. They have 5 kids, and this is many years ago. And she writes me, she goes, I'm so sorry. It's last minute. My daughter is scared. She has pain in the back of her head, like a bump or something. And I don't know what to do because it's finally a weekend away with the hubby, and had all the care, had the grandparents, everything. And I got the very big hit. I was like, she's fine, but she needs to know she's not going to die. And I know it sounds extreme, right? So she takes her daughter, says to take her to the doctor. She goes to the doctor, and the doctor says, does all this checkup, and then says to her, she has her wisdom teeth coming in, and rarely there's something where a bump happens, like in the head somewhere. I know where it was. It's very rare, but she's going to be okay. When they told the young woman this, the young girl, she just sobbed. She's like, I thought I was going to die. So just going there to check alleviated the child's like psychologically. She just was like, I'm okay. And then the mom and dad were able to go away, and grandparents were able to take care of the kids. Some people may not choose to do that, but the child was like, she was really terrified something bad was going to happen to her.
well,
So
do you remember what was the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where he's kindergarten cop and he was talking about, oh my God, you guys are giving me a headache. Kids like, maybe you have a brain tumor. I mean, that's kind of the same
yes.
extreme. That's the ego. That was a perfect example of the ego. The ego wants to use fear to keep you where you are because that's what kept cavemen safe, right? Stay
Yes.
where you are. Don't go outside in the dark. Stay where it's nice and but it affects us as modern humans because that fear keeps you, just the fear of failure or the fear of what will other people think or whatever. Just fears are just nonsense. And I truly found out the day fear leaves you. This is really, it's coincidental when you take your last breath.
Yeah.
Fear is a constant. It's just a constant
I agree.
nagging thing about being alive. And what you have to do is manage it, mitigate it, deal with it, do whatever. In other words, I mean, that's where courage comes in, right?
Absolutely. And I like that you brought that up too. It's like I call it dancing with fear. Like it's like we're not going to get rid of it. Whenever I see a coach saying get rid of your fear, I'm like, "Well, it doesn't end till we go." And there's always a fear of the unknown because we don't control our lives and we don't know what's going to happen. And yes, if we love very hard and that person doesn't return it, we might get heartbroken, but at least we've lived and now we can move forward and love again. I think, and that's where courage, like you said, taking risks. It's funny because somebody said to me the other day, Vanessa, you have a lot of confidence. I'm like, well, I've lived several decades on the earth, I've risked a lot. If I didn't have confidence at this time, I would be in trouble. You know, like I've survived a lot of things just like you have. We've survived a certain amount of things. We've lived to love another day. We've lived to create another day. We've listened to our intuition enough to be guided on a path. And so I also feel like it's good for us to have confidence. And I don't mean ego confidence, but the confidence that we are being guided no matter what difficulty we're going through, that there's always a lesson if we're open to it, right? And there's just always some deepening of life knowledge that we can get. And so, yeah, dance with that fear, mitigate it, shake its hand, put it in the closet, give it a night off, do something, but it's there with us.
And so I'm going to keep this back into the frame. You look down at that newborn, and all of a sudden, all these crazy thoughts start. Am I going to be a good enough parent, or what if my baby's sick? Or it's like, just quiet that. Just quiet that. Keep one end fed, keep the other end clean, and you're probably way ahead of everything else.
Exactly. When just like we were saying earlier about being present,
Mhm.
because being present will warn you.
Mhm.
Present
I'll
will.
tell you something. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll tell you something that I experienced with all my kids, and some people may think it's crazy, but as newborns, I was sending them simple thoughts of love and, hey, I'm so glad you're here and welcome to Earth and that kind of thing.
I
And
love
they would
it.
they would they would just kind of smile.
I love it. It's
I think
real.
I think they got me.
But
Yeah.
it's real. It's what we were talking about. We're wired to receive and send invisible information.
Yeah.
And I so love that you did that. And that is, you were sending them the energy of welcome. Because, sometimes people say something but act a different way.
Mm,
You were in alignment.
mm.
And I think that that's a beautiful technique that anybody who's listening, when you've got that newborn coming, like touching. I remember when my mom was carrying my sister and I was like 10 or 11. So I would like touch the belly, be like, hey, I love you. I'm your sister. I'm going to show you around. I'd be talking to her before she came out,
Mm.
and we're very close. And so we are putting out vibes. Just like we say, ew, I don't like those vibes. It's up to us to put out those welcoming vibes, those loving vibes. And yeah,
Absolutely.
babies smile like that. And I do that with pets as well.
Absolutely. Do it with
Plants,
plants, pets,
even.
whatever. Yeah.
Plants. I'm like, when I bring one in, hi, welcome. I know. And people might think whatever, but they grow and they grow well.
Yeah. And that brings me to a study that a Japanese scientist did with water.
Mhm.
It was water
Yes.
or yeah, water where
Formation
he
of water, the formation of water with words.
right. And he would play beautiful music to some and say he loved it and form beautiful geometric patterns. And then other ones he like focused his rage and it was a horrible disheveled geometric just mess as opposed to the ones that he showed kindness. And you can look it up on YouTube. It's absolutely a fascinating study where he did nothing but talk and demonstrate emotion, direct emotion to an inanimate object. And it reflected back, or at least it marked itself in relation to the energy that it was receiving. It
Yeah.
expressed itself that way.
And it's very important because we're made up of water.
That's, I think, why he did it with water. That's right.
Yeah. And so I love that you're bringing that up. So sharing those energies, and whatever, sometimes when we're about to have a child, or we're getting pregnant and we go through our stressors, whether there's a loss of a child, whether there's a worry of, will the other kids, welcome it? Will I lose my job? The things that happen in life. I would say to come back to being present and to come back to those positive messages, right? So we also don't pass it on to the kids, right?
Mm.
Um, I've heard of some parents who have told their, kids as they grow up, oh, I didn't really, want you, things like that. Right, I know. And so it's really positive that even if you are confused, even if you're going through struggle, to get your support, whether the therapy or something else, and just to keep welcoming in this gift, no matter the circumstances, no matter how difficult they may be, you know?
Well, and I'll tell you, the true gift of children, it allows you to see life through a child's eyes again.
Yes.
Just that one aspect. If you just dwell on that one thing, or at least kind of bring it to mind every once in a while, when you see the joy in a child's eye for the first time when he sees this or experiences that, hey, you know what? That's cool. Let you enjoy it with them instead of taking a picture. get out of zero reality. And what's funny is there's a study that says several studies, if you're taking a picture or a movie of an event, you are not present at the event. And when you go back and watch the movie, it's like, wow, I don't remember that. Well, yeah, you don't, because you're in zero reality instead of experiencing the moment.
Yeah, it's so important. It's so important. Every day, what I'm doing is I'm spending some time in the hammock between sessions, and then I'm spending time on the porch with my partner and just breathing, just being present, just sitting there together, listening to each other. And we were doing that with his kids yesterday. It's important to just be present with our phones away, with everything away, and just be quiet together. Just be present, as you were saying.
Mm.
Yeah.
I forgot who was it, Mennonites or Quakers? I believe it's Quakers. A friend of mine grew up a Quaker, and they would sit around for an hour or two and no one would say anything. And they would, if someone like felt the spirit to speak, they'd get up and speak, say a few things. But other than that, they were just sitting quietly. And that's that's something that's one, difficult to do as a child. I mean, just look at the public school systems. They want you to sit and be quiet. But anyways, let's get back to it. I'm gonna nudge you back to the frame again. Things we could think about with like you said, with your partner. Another very important tool is to sit there and breathe with your partner. That's a really interesting alignment tool that people really don't realize, and that goes into the, when you're doing that, when you're in the process of making a baby, being in total alignment with your partner. But breath, and no one is really able to think of what are you thinking. So hey, as dads, tell the wife how you're feeling, because most men think there are four emotions. I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm okay, and I don't know what the other one is. Fine. None of those are emotions. One of them's a physical state. Two of them are physical states. I'm hungry, I'm tired. Well, that's physiological. Let's dig a little deeper, guys. So not being able to read people's minds, let's get that communication and just ask, hey, how are you feeling? How are you? And as fathers, for women that have just had babies, you cannot do too much to make sure that mommy and baby are bonding and she has nothing else to think about.
I love that. Yes. Very important. Very important. These are very important days where mommy and baby need that time to just be present with each other. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, when they go back to work too early or they have to cook and then they have to take care of everything, it's too much. It's too stressful because mommy also needs to recoup her body and her mind and her spirit and everything. And then take in this new life, right? That's dependent on her.
Well, actually, not only this new life, but this new social contract that says you give, the baby takes, and that's the end of the contract.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to it. They take, you give. That's it. It's the social contract.
Yeah.
Well, you said something, I wanted to segue on it, but that's okay. We'll continue.
But definitely when we talk about intuition and when we talk about, bringing a child into the world, and helping raise them, it's also important to not have them fear their own intuition, especially because children are so open when they're little. And I mean, the stuff that,
that's the make-believe friends, the invisible friends. I mean, that is an example of a possible intuition, or a guide or whatever, talking to the child, and they're totally accept. Oh yeah, my invisible friends. Like, oh, okay, what are they saying? And tell me about them, that kind of thing. What I was going to mention is this: when the baby is nursing, it's a really interesting phenomenon. As the baby is nursing, the focal distance of the baby is basically, when they're latched on from their eyes to your eyes, which is about 10 inches. It's about the same focal distance when people are doing this. So I would suggest to mothers, let me see if I get there, that you're not doing this when you're breastfeeding, but you're actually looking at your child, whether their eyes are open or not. I mean, they know if you're looking at them, but that's really not the time to be on a smart device. That's why you could listen on a podcast, but you don't have to actually watch. But I just thought that was kind of an interesting. I didn't know that when the baby's latched on, their focal length is exactly from the breast to the eyes. I mean, that's as far as they could see away.
as far as a phone would be to somebody's eyes. Incredible. I didn't know that either.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And I love that you keep bringing it back to that as well, because I think that in our modern life, you know, our phone is like just a second away. It's right there. It's probably, I think some folks sleep with it and so on. And I've been shutting it off at night, and it's important to leave it in the house and walk a trail or do something else. And when we're with our children, I think that, you know, there's a timelessness that happens, right? Like time just shifts. Like it's 4 in the after. What happened? Where are we? And if you have that freedom, because not every mom does, but if daddy's holding it down for you, if the family's holding it down, you have that time to luxuriate in that timelessness, right? Because I don't think that we get that at any other time in life. As kids grow up, suddenly they've got to be somewhere at some point in time. We've got to be somewhere, and to luxuriate in those first, you know, even though luxuriate is a stretch because there's also lack of sleep and all the other things that happen. But
Right.
yeah,
Right. The it's important. That's why we have a digital sunrise around here and a digital sunset, because right now, what time is it? It's summertime in Alaska, so you can't go by dark or light because it's just light all the time. Yesterday was the longest day of the year, of course, but so it's always summertime. When someone asks what time is it around here, it's like it's summertime. Okay, Vanessa, how about a couple tools or techniques, or just a practice maybe someone can start with, and then tell us where we could get some more of your information.
absolutely. Well, some of it will be a bit of a review. One of the things to really know and acknowledge is that everybody has intuition, one way, shape, or another. Two, to acknowledge and remember that everybody has it differently. Because I teach, you know, courses in intuition. Sometimes people come and they're like, "I can't see anything. My friend sees everything," and the other one's like, "I just hear stuff. Should I have a gut feeling?" Allow space and time so you could develop your own language, figure out what it means. If you hear that voice, listen to it. The third thing I would say is to test it out. You know, I know what it's like not to listen to the voice and then going, and then
I
figure
should have, yeah.
right. And then have that where like, oh, I listened to it. And because people always say, how do I know if I'm making it up? And I'm like, well, follow it through and see what happens. And then if you're making it up or not, who cares? Just listen to it, right? Like maybe it's a wiser part of your mind. We're okay with that as long as it's helping you and guiding you. And then just make time every day, even if you're super busy as a mom, as a dad. Maybe it's during the shower, right? Feeling your feet on the ground of the shower, or feeling your feet on the grass, as you were saying, outside. Allow yourself to really return to your body without having your mind too active. Not the easiest thing for some. Maybe you need meditation music. Maybe you need to just breathe. I think all of us just need to breathe. Maybe you need to move your body in yoga or Tai Chi or just walking. I find that just walking, I get a lot of downloads. And as you allow yourself to just come back to know that you're enough, I think we were talking about that, about the dramatics of Hollywood and all that, to know that we already have intuition. We don't have to seek it outside. And to simply ask yourself every day, what do I need to know right now? And to be confident with that, because sometimes we're like, well, that's not enough. I want a whole download for my new book. But, you know, how are we going to get the download for the book if we didn't listen to that first message you got, which said relax, right? Because I find a lot of students are like, well, it's too simple, the message. And I'm like, what did it say? Drink water. Well, go drink water. Maybe you're dehydrated and you have headaches, right?
Chances are they are dehydrated.
Right, right. Most of us. And so allow it to be simple, allow it to be something that it's doable. It doesn't have to be like you're standing on your head when the moon is full under the moon of Pisces or something, you know, or Scorpio, or a water sign. So you're more psychic. Just let it be something natural and let it be something that calls you. Um, and I would say, if you have time to write something in your journal, what are the signs you saw today? Is there something that people are repeating to you? Oh, and I love this one too. So I did this when I was 19. If you feel really serious about developing your intuition, you might want to write a little letter to your higher self, your angels, your guides, whatever you want to call it, your spirit, and be like, hey, I'm ready to delve deeper. I'm ready to listen. I'm ready to receive. And I wrote that letter. And, you know, once you raise your hand in God's classroom, you know, there's no going back, you're in. And so that's just another one of those techniques. But I
Well,
would
what's
say, yeah, paying
uh,
attention is really good.
absolutely, and what is so important about what you did that people fail to realize is they're taking a thought, and by the act of writing it down on paper, you've now taken that thought and printed it into reality. You've actually manifested that thought into reality. It's no longer a thought, it's reality, even if it's just words on a piece of paper. And that's a very, very important aspect that, oh, writing says, no. Journaling is very important. And so what if it doesn't make sense? Right, until after a while, it's like, oh, and then all of a sudden you get into the flow and then you go back and read it. You go, wow, well, that was kind of interesting. I think I just wrote myself a message that what I should be doing, or a reflection or something like that. So very important.
Even I need to take care of that health thing that I keep thinking is going to go away, or maybe some healing about you and your grandmother that you haven't thought about, but you needed to heal it. Or maybe that your child reminds you of somebody in your family, right? That you need to do a little healing with, because maybe you're projecting some upset with somebody. I mean, these are the things that can come through intuition. So I love that. Yeah. So much
Absolutely.
comes through when we put it into manifested reality.
And usually the first is either the spoken word or the written word, but the spoken word is very, very powerful. All I have to do is listen to certain text and it says, let there be light in the spoken word. Well, that was a voice, right?
Yes.
Anyways, well, I sure appreciate you taking the time to join us for this very special Best Day Ever podcast. We got a lot of great information. If the listeners want to find out more about you and see some of the things that you do for them, where can they go?
They can go to intuitiveleverage.com, and that's my 8-week intuition boot camp. And there's also a listing of other informations. And I do actually intuitive readings now for like 25 years. I also do hypnosis to help people break through their fears, connect their intuition, release trauma and some anxiety. And I also do a little more of the woo-woo stuff, which is past life regression, ancestral healing. But you can find that all there. So, yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Vanessa. It was very, very enlightening talking to you.
So great talking to you.
All right. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. We have stopped recording.
Yay. I hope you're happy with it.
You know what? I'm always pleased with the conversation because I set the frame, and if it doesn't, if I'm not pleased with the conversation, well, I should have further refined the frame, don't you think?
Yeah. So how long have you been in Alaska?
Well, I have 3 of my 5 children have been born up here. So the oldest one is 19, but off and on, the wife and I lived up here with one wife, and my 3rd son was born, and we were divorced 14 years ago. And my wife, Jill, the editor of the magazine, and I have been married 10 years. We have 2 children. Jack is 5, Lucy is 7. So we've lived here at least 10 years, but we had Hong Kong breaks. We went to Hong Kong for 2 years, came back, had kids, went to Hong Kong, came back, and came back.
I love it. And you love Alaska?
Oh, absolutely. I've lived in 4 different countries. I've lived in 12 different states. I've been around the world 7 or 8 times. I've been to maybe 70 different countries. And I've never been any place here where I felt like I was at home, ever.
Wow.
And what's interesting about Alaska, I'm 60. I turned 60 in April. And I remember a lot of things about America that aren't really present today, like common courtesy and kindness and things like that. And it's prevalent up here. Simply because they call this place the last frontier for a reason. And it is difficult to live here. It is not easy to live in Alaska. It is just so, it's the last frontier. So people tend to think up here, I've noticed, and I was talking to the FedEx guy about this the other day. Everyone goes through the winter together, and pretty much everyone carries. So armed society is a polite society. And the thing of it is you don't want to be the jackass that, now you're in a ditch and then the person you're a jackass to just drives by going, yeah, well, I hope you get out of that, jackass. Right. So I'm just saying that's kind of like it's like kind of a guiding principle. It's like you help other people that need help here.
Yeah.
Or at least offer.
Yeah.
And the other thing is Alaska is one place that I've noticed that the closest helping hand that you have is at the end of your arm. Is at the end of this thing. This is your helping hand, right? That's where you need to go first. And if you can't, if it's not enough, if you need more help, you can ask somebody and they'll always be here. I mean, it's just the way it
That's
is.
so great. I've never been. I'm excited. Someday I'm going to go when
Well, yeah,
COVID is better. Yeah.
oh yeah, it's you know what? I was in the military for 22 years, and I did a lot of things. And I'll tell you what COVID was. It was biological warfare against the United States economy. I mean, you know what? That's, I mean, if you look at all the things, you take all the hysteria away, it was a very effective way to shut down an economy that
Oh,
was
yeah.
booming. But well, we'll see how it comes back. Anyways, I don't want to get political.
I mean,
but,
and like right now, my mom passed away in April in Miami.
oh,
Family.
sorry to hear that.
And I want to be able to like go grieve with my family, but my partner
Mm,
and I were gonna take the auto train down to Florida,
mm,
but he has COPD, right?
mm.
So he's healthy though, but we're like, he's now worried. So I'm gonna fly or I'm gonna, get there on my own. But it is, I think it's warfare as well. I also feel though that I've met a lot of people who've struggled with it and all of
Okay.
them survived, but they were like really sick for 6 weeks. Very,
Well,
very sick. And they were not older people, by the way.
I get it. Let me share
Yeah.
something with you. I flew through Asia and around the world during Zika, during H1N1, during swine flu, during the blue bird flu, during Ebola, during name whatever, catastrophe pandemic. I was flying internationally around there and I never got sick. And one of the reasons I never got sick is I don't put this on my face unless I've just washed my hands. And if I do put it on my face, it's the back of my wrist.
Yeah.
You don't touch a lot of things here.
Yeah.
But just that one aspect of keeping my hands off my face reduced my illness by a tremendous amount. And one of the reasons is your mucous membrane, i.e. your eyeball, is where 98% of all viruses and bacteria enter your body. I don't know if you've ever heard that or not, but science says that's how it happens. I touch
It's
a
tough.
doorknob.
I wear contacts. So I stick my fingers in my eyeball, but I'm trying to wash them before I wash them after.
There you go.
But yeah. But
big
you're right.
difference.
You're right. And we've been healthy and we've, but we're
The
on
other
it.
thing, the other thing that you may consider is there's like a 0% chance of, I think even contracting the COVID if your vitamin D levels are correct.
Yes, they are. I've been on that too. And zinc. And I stick them in his mouth. I'm like, open your mouth. Boom, boom. There's
Yeah.
your vitamin D. Yeah. Yeah. And we feel like really energized. We're like
Mhm.
walking. And so, but thank you
Mhm.
for that. Yeah. I'm going to go tell him about the back of his hand.
Well, I'll give you the back of mine.
This is so great. Let me know when you share it so I could share it on Instagram. I could share it everywhere on my list.
Sure. I'll be
Facebook.
getting an email from Zoom here in a half an hour, 20 minutes, whatever. It's already on my Major Dad official YouTube, I believe. But a quick question. It's simply for me to provide a better experience for you. Is there anything I could do better as a host or a point, hey, you might want to consider this, or I felt uncomfortable this way. I want to make sure people, one, they feel comfortable while they're here, and two, have a nice environment for sharing.
I see. I'm very like go with the flow. So it was good to hear your stories and both of us were trying to bring it back and have a good conversation. So I was fine with that. I think that there are some people who are probably uncomfortable with that. So they might want to have some questions beforehand. And like I do podcasts and I don't send questions just to let you know, like I have 7 episodes. And sometimes people ask me, they're like, do you have any questions? So I'm like, well, this is what I'm going to ask. Boom, 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 just because they feel better. So for me, I'm fine this way. And I always show up kind of ready to go with the flow. But I know that some people might need that.
Right. And that's why I provide the frame. And that's why I
Yeah,
call prior to say, look, this is what we're going to talk about.
totally. You
Uh,
did.
so, all right. Well, very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, it was a pleasure to meet you electronically, Vanessa.
Yes, you do. Keep thriving and sharing your wisdom. I love it. And I'm excited to share this with everyone.
Well,
So
very
thank
good.
you, Daniel, for saying yes. And
All right.
be good.
Thank you. We'll
Bye-bye.
talk to you later. Bye-bye. Oh, we're still on YouTube Live, so we're going to end that too.
Hey, people.
Extra. All right. Bye-bye.